home at one point, but now we're getting a little more sophisticated, and there were such things as, you know, fairy flakes is one of the products that they had. Also ivory snow, Fell's naphtha, that type of thing. Coffee, most of their produce they would have grown on their own farm, but they might have got seeds here, and a variety of other things.
Now I see this sign is a little off-centered. They must not have sold measuring tapes.
No, I think a lot of these types of things were done by the most talented person in the area, so often it was not a professional sign painter.
All right.
So why don't we take a look inside? You can see what types of things are still on our shelves.
Some of these products really look familiar.
Yeah, many of the products that we use today and see on our grocery shelves were available early on. A couple of them that we have here on the shelf really show how the product identification has stayed the same throughout the years. Thinking primarily of the Quaker Oats, the packaging always had a Quaker on it, and it still does today, although it's been changed and modernized quite a bit. Clabber Girl is another example of a product that's been around forever, and it obviously the packaging worked, the identification, people recognized it on the shelves, they liked it, and they've really never changed their labeling very much. The other one that I like to point out is the Maxwell House, and there's kind of an interesting story. If you look at the old can of Maxwell House, you'll see that there's a hotel on it, and that's actually where the coffee got its name, and there's a story that goes along with it. Apparently Maxwell House was in, I believe, Tennessee, and Teddy Roosevelt was visiting there one time, and as he was finishing his coffee, the waitress pulled it away from him, and he said, "No," he says, "I want to finish this." He said, "It's good to the last drop." And they coined that phrase, and they used it for probably 50, 60 years. In fact, I think it will probably resurface at some point in their advertising, but Maxwell House coffee goes all the way back, and there is sort of a little story that goes with that theme.
So the general store served as a meeting place for everyone in the community. Tell us about that.
Right. As in the other buildings, these buildings became kind of a central point of meeting. Often there could have actually been public meetings here at the store because there were so few buildings to use. But actually, people would come in and they would maybe, you know, read a newspaper, that there'd be a current newspaper here. A lot of times they'd sit down, play a game of checkers. They'd visit with each other. For the most part, most of the produce and stuff was grown on the farms. They'd get their dry goods, maybe some materials, some basic hardware stuff here. If they were going to do a major shopping trip, they may have gone into Plymouth or Detroit. But the general store was kind of a stop on the Saturday chores to just keep up with some of the seed and things that you might need, your general merchandise. And so it was kind of an important part of the community and a point where people got to know each other. So would you like to come and see the bungalow house? Get the chance to see the last building on our stop?
Okay. So this is the Gear family house?
Well, the Gears lived here at one point. Actually, the Carson family was the family that I think lived here longer. The house is known as the Bungalow House, and it was built in 1913, and it's just an example of a small kind of bungalow-style home which has only a few rooms in it. It's very tiny.
Now, is this the standard style that you'd expect to see around that time?
Well, it's very typical of the time period and for a country home. It was maybe thought to be a kit house, which means the house would have come through an order through a catalog, and the family would have put it up and finished it themselves. And so it's fairly typical of that style of house. The layout is a little unusual on the inside. Maybe you'd like to take a look at that.
Oh, yes. Well, how were some of these furnishings acquired?
Well, we were lucky to get a lot of donations for this building. The building is of a time period where a lot of people had memories, items that belonged to their family, no longer things that they would use in their own homes, but kind of special memories. So fortunately, a lot of beautiful things were donated to us, and because of it, this house is very well furnished for the size of it. It has quite a few items in it.
So how did some of the people spend their leisure times during that time?
People would have gathered here in the evening, and this room in particular would have been kind of a center place for the family to entertain themselves. There was no TV, there was no radio. There's a phonograph in the corner. We have the player piano. People would have enjoyed reading in the evening, and the kids would have been doing homework. Mom might have been cleaning up the kitchen. So I think that after you visited all of the buildings together, we might have a sense of what life was like in early Livonia Township. Very different from what it is today, but kind of a fascinating peek at what grandparents might have, or their childhoods might have been like.
Well, thank you for that very informative tour, Marion. It really gave us a lot of history on the buildings and allowed us to get some insight to the way life was back then.
Well, I really appreciate you coming out, and we like the opportunity to showcase what we have here at Greenmead. So thank you very much for taking the time to enjoy it, and we're hoping the public will do the same.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
Livonia has seen a lot of changes over the years. It has come from a rural farming community and grown into a progressive suburban city. Thanks to the Greenmead Historical Park, we now have a better idea of where we've been so that we know where we're going.